Good day. I hope everyone is good. Today we're going to be looking at the mega trends within logistics and supply chain. If you notice properly, nowadays there's just a lot of changes. There's a lot of new things that are happening. There's a lot of trends, and within the logistics and the business side, and the supply chain side, there's also mega trends that are happening within that space. Now, one of the changes that are happening, it is globalization. A lot of businesses are going global, a lot of businesses are expanding. There's just that movement towards an integrated global economy. Countries are now working together, countries are now trading amongst each other. Back then, it's no longer like back then, but nowadays, everyone is just trading amongst each other. There's that compression of time and distance. Back then, having and getting to get a product from China, for example, would be a mission and a half, compared to today. Today, it would take about less than a month. And then you've got your products. If you order something from China today, in less than a month, in less than 2 3 weeks, you're gonna get your product. So there's that compression of time and distance, and businesses must function in a global arena in order for them to become competitive. If you notice properly, there's other products that you cannot get locally and that are in demand locally, and they are not locally produced. You can barely find them locally. Now when you are sourcing them globally, because some countries might have what you're looking for, then when you've got that product that is needed locally, then that sets you at an advantage. It makes you to have that competitive advantage, and there's just more agile strategies that are required. When you're going global, you need to look at things like currency, the exchange rate, the duration that you're going to get your products. You need to be very strategic, because not all products make sense, or all products, it's not always worth it to go global with some products. Some products you go global because of the better quality that they offer. Sometimes you might find that the proper quality is locally produced. Now when you're going global and sourcing your product or your material globally, you notice that the the quality is different, the quality is a bit poor. So it's always good to make sure that you are a bit strategic when it comes to that. But globalization is a trend. A lot of businesses are now having footprint in a lot of countries. They are going global. They want to make sure that in each and every country they exist. They just expanding their markets and their horizon, of which that's a good thing, provided that it's a strategic move. um, we're looking at empowered consumers. Nowadays, consumers are very empowered. Nowadays, people are getting more educated. Consumers are much more informed, looking at how easy it is nowadays to get access to information. Customers are getting more informed. They are much more open now. They question. Nowadays, we're dealing with a lot of customers who are questioning. We've got that questioning mind, that questioning mindset. Why is it like this? Why isn't it like that? How can we make it better? Why am I getting my product at this time in this condition? Yet back then, people would accept whatever you would give them. Nowadays, customers have got access to the internet. They are able to compare prices. They are able to compare the quality that you are offering, the accuracy, and the service that you are offering. There's always a competitor out there, and if you are not playing your game right, if your game is not an A game, then it becomes a bit easier for them to kick you out of the market, or not to consider you. And you know very well that in business, the moment your competitor overtakes you, to regain that spot, it is a mission and a half, and it is something that's a bit very difficult to go back to. Now all of this, it does put a lot of pressure on the companies and the businesses that are within the logistics space and that are within the supply chain space. Because remember now, if a customer wants to place an order, let's say they want to buy a cell phone online, and you are telling them as a supplier that they're gonna get it within a month, then high chances you're gonna lose those customers, because there are guys out there who are like giving them better offers, saying that you're gonna get your phone within 7 days. you're gonna get your phone within 2 to 3 working days. Now they've compared and they've checked that in terms of time, these guys are gonna give us our product as soon as possible, because nowadays as customers we want our products immediately, instantly. So that gets to put a lot of pressure on supply chain businesses and logistics as well, and as a result of an empowered customer, there's a lot of shifts within the global economic power. For example, there's a lot of new relations that countries and regions are now forming. For example, there's the BRICS and there's SADC relations as well, whereby if you are within the SADC region, there's certain favors and certain benefits that you get to get. And as a result of that, let's say, for example, if there was no SADC, then South Africa would be trading with other countries on a normal basis. But now, because of these new policies and these new formations of SADC, for example, or the BRICS, now trade amongst these countries become much more intense, and the direction of the capital flow, it now changes. Now it is now focused on those countries, because now we have a relation, we've got a trade relation. Whether we're giving you guys a particular scale, we get this from you guys, we send a particular material or a kind of a product that you guys might not have, and then you guys give us this. But now trade becomes facilitated and becomes much more intense, and now that usually makes mature markets to lose their influence, as they become less attractive as well, because people no longer focus on them. People no longer or nations no longer put as much effort or as much focus on them, because now there's these new relations that we are trying to invest in, that we are trying to maintain, and build as well, as a result of the conversations that they've had and the benefits or the potential benefits that they're looking at getting. Now there's also a demographic shift. If you notice, more especially nowadays, people are migrating. When you're looking at it from the South African context, I'm from the Eastern Cape, and you'd notice that people leave the Eastern Cape and come to Johannesburg. When they get to Johannesburg, either maybe they came for studies or they came looking for jobs, but they end up being invested here and this side, and their lives revolve around this side. Now back at home, there's not much happening, and one barely leaves the environment here and goes back home. So now there's that demographic growth in geographical areas and a decline in others, because a lot of people, for example, are leaving Eastern Cape and coming to Gauteng. There's a decline in the demographic patterns within the Eastern Cape region. That's just an example. And this shift, they can increase a lot of pressure to create jobs, because when a lot of people are now here in Joburg, you have to cater for those people there. There has to be a plan for those people, be it's pressure on the government or it's pressure on businesses, because people are here and they need to be employed and they are ready to work, they want to work, they are available to work. And these shifts also get to force organizations to change their business models. Sometimes some organizations, they feel like if we've got less people working, the better. But when people are out there and they are hunting for jobs, sometimes they're going to disrupt your operations because of things like strike and public protests and all these other related disturbances or disruptions that might affect your business, and you might have to now open doors to a few that you can accommodate, of course. So there's those demographic shifts that get to affect the supply chain, because nowadays, when you're looking at it properly, or just looking at this example that I'm talking about, if a lot of people are shifting from the Eastern Cape coming to Gauteng, meaning that a lot of activity has to happen within the Gauteng region, be it public transport, how people go to work and come back, the roads have to be proper, the facilities have to be right, the routes have to be sorted, and then now within a working environment as well, now that there's 10 more staff, how do we make sure that we are able to maneuver around the facilities with the 10 new people? So now businesses have to change their model, they have to change how they do things. Different people, there's, because of demographics as well, there's things like sex, there's things like a race as well that businesses have to keep in mind as a result of these shifts that are happening. There's technology. Technology is impacting the business environment, the logistics space on a day-to-day basis. I'm not so sure if you guys have noticed, but on a day-to-day basis, you notice that there's just a new invention, there's a new development, there's a new innovation that has came into market, and technology has opened the global market and the global economy for development. If you notice properly, having to source a product that is in uh, China, for example, it's the second time I'm using China, but it's fine. Having to buy a product that's in China, it's much more easier nowadays than it was before. Nowadays, it's just on a click of a button, and then after a few days or a few weeks, you get your order at your door. There's an increased productivity as a result of technology. There's robots that are working. There's certain systems that can run 24 hours that you just press and make sure that you easily maintain, you take good care of them, and then after that they are sorted. Now there's new markets that have been created as a result of technology, and these new markets, there's markets that die because of technology, but there's also new markets that are out there that have been created as a result of technology. And the challenge with technology is that it is never predictable. It is very unpredictable, because today we could be speaking this language, and then tomorrow it's a different language, it's a different ball game within the business environment or within our day-to-day lives. For example, it's so difficult to try and imagine life today without Uber, for example, without WhatsApp, without Facebook, without Twitter. It's very difficult. It's difficult to try and imagine life, how we survived before those products came into market. So just something to think about. It's very unpredictable. Tomorrow something can come up, and we have to adapt to that, have to keep up with the times, and let go of our old habits. There's the COVID-19 pandemic. I think this one everyone can relate with. It changed everything in the market. It changed how we do things, how business is done. It changed how certain processes are done and are facilitated. It changed the nature of work. It disrupted a lot of industries, from the pharmaceutical industry, the manufacturing industry, the education space. Everything changed, and there was a shift to an online type of a platform. The nature of work, it changed. Now there's new style of working, like the hybrid model, whereby you work, let's say, 4 days in at work, and then the other days you are working from home. There's some companies that are like, we only gonna call you guys when we need you, or when we need you physically. Maybe we're having a meeting, or there's maybe a team building exercise or activities that you need to be doing physically, but apart from that, we are not working in the facilities. And I think that has also changed a lot of businesses, because they're also cutting costs. Now there's no more renting of facilities, there's no more paying for electricity within the facilities, paying security, paying for water, maintaining the environment, the cleaning. All those costs, we've cut them. And if people are working from home, then the company is actually saving a lot. And the demand fulfillment has become very difficult, and it has forced entities to evolve. If you notice properly, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was very difficult to get certain products, because maybe some products are sourced globally, and some countries were had their borders closed, be it for people who are traveling internationally, or be it for trade as well. It was a very tough time. And imagine if your supplier is an international supplier, and there's a demand for your product right now, but you can barely supply, you cannot supply, because uh, your suppliers cannot get your products to the country that you are in. So the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, it did change how a lot of businesses operated. Even when it was done, a lot of businesses, and the way we did things, it never went back to normal. It never went back to how we did things, but instead we have moved forward. Now there's the climate change as well. It's something that is very important to be looking at. And nowadays, if you notice properly, the weather patterns are a bit different. They're no longer the same as back then. Back then, we knew that in summer it's hot, in winter it's cold, autumn and spring and all of that. And these sudden changes, and sometimes weather can become very extreme. If it's hot, it's extremely hot. If it's raining, it's extremely raining to such an extent that there's floods that are caused. And this usually leads to a scarcity of resources, because there's other natural products that are farmed, and they need a particular weather climate, and if it's not like that, then they don't survive, and it becomes a loss for the farmer and also for the nation, because we're not able to get that product that they are producing. There's the demand for energy and water. That demand is increasing. Energy in South Africa, there's the electricity crisis. It is a challenge. It is a pandemic. Water is increasing, and water, the need for water is increasing, and sometimes you find that there's water shortages. That's what climate change is just doing, and it's just messing up everything. And there's a need for sustainable solutions. The solutions that we need to come up with, they need to be sustainable, not only solutions that are going to help us now and affect us in the future, but it needs to be solutions that are sustainable. There's an increase in the conflict and tension within the political space, to gain control over the scarce products, as to who can provide these scarce products. And people are just fighting to make sure that they are the ones who are supplying these scarce products. As to what plan can they make, it's not known. And this will affect the global supply and the industrial and consumer goods, because if there's a scarce product that is very essential but it's difficult to find or expensive to get, then it does affect the global supply, because when there's a need, when there's a demand, the supply should be there in order for things to go well and for the economy to be boosted. With that being said, those are the mega trends that are happening within the logistics space, within the supply chain space. And thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for bookings, be it your guest speaker, lecturing, and many more. Feel free to contact me on bapileduba5@gmail.com, and my contact details are also stated below. With that being said, thank you very much. See you on the next video.